Okay, it's game time.
Shoot!
Down! Hasta luego.
I have this.
Feast on this!
Feel free to loop that graphically overhauled opening as many times as you want. Welcome to the start of the showcase. Now for the introduction of every weapon, I'm going to be using this screen, which is the models within the bonuses section of the main menu. And as I said in my introduction, I'm going to start with the knives, and the very first one is the kitchen knife. Let's get a really nice close-up view of it and do some rotation. Nice. Alright, so here it is in the game when examining it from the attaché case. So the kitchen knife is described as a knife made for cooking. Its edge chips easily. Alright. And even though it's a disposable, collectible knife throughout the game, it still has statistics, so take a good look at those right there. Half a point of power, quarter of a point durability, and average attack speed. So this obviously isn't made for durability purposes. Because it's so collectible, it's a last resort weapon. It can be great though for stealth kills, I'll tell you that much. Alright, so here it is. I already spun it in the models menu, so let's check it out in game. Here's Leon holding it. Alright, and yeah, after an activity, he'll put it away. Wait, you can actually see it in his sheath right there. Nice. Alright. Here we go. So, when it comes to the knives, there's two ways you could do basic attacks with it. You could either aim and do a stabbing motion, like so, or you could just slash away without aiming. So, let's show it in action, both ways. First, just regular slashing. And I could actually get a different angle like this. Alright. And now for the stabbing motion. It's a little quicker in that sense. Alright, now, when it comes to testing on an enemy, of course.
You have the stench of battle on you, mate.
Of course, the merchant wants to interrupt me. So when it comes to testing on an enemy, of course, I'm going to use the most standard enemy possible, which in this game, of course, is the ganado. And I will go ahead and test the knives both in slashing motion and stabbing motion, just to see if there's a damage difference. So let's go ahead and test out the kitchen knife on a ganado. Alright, so that took me 7 slashes to defeat a female standard ganado. So as you guys saw, I parried her several times, but I don't think the parry itself does any damage, at least if they have a weapon in their hand, because I'm parrying the weapon and not their flesh. It is possible to parry the flesh off of ganados if they are just using their bare fists, but that wasn't the case here, so I don't think that inflicted any damage. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 7 slashes to defeat her. Now let's try stabs. Alright, so it took me 8 stabs to defeat her. So I don't know if that's indicative of anything exactly, because it does have a distinct firepower, so doing the difference between the two things, one's just a more direct attack. So it probably varies between 6 to 9 slashes or stabs for all I know. And I should mention that this entire weapon review is being conducted in standard mode. So, if you play on any higher difficulties, such as hardcore or professional, it very likely will take more slashes than what you guys saw here. But yeah, Just had a very small difference in test right there. I have to say, whenever you parry her, she does have some funny voice lines. When I'm done testing all of the knives, I will show you guys everything that you could do with a knife. It doesn't matter which knife you use, the only difference is the durability, of course. So one thing I'm going to briefly mention here real quick are these accessories, the deer antlers. The reason why I'm showing this is because the effect these have on Leon is they greatly increase the power of knife attacks. And I'm going to show these using the kitchen knife because that's the weakest knife of the bunch. So let's just see how much it ups the power of the knife. Remember, it took 7 slashes initially and 8 stabs. So let's see the comparison. And yes, he looks funny, but deal with it. So yeah, only 4 slashes if you have the deer antlers equipped when using a kitchen knife against a Ganado. So it nearly halves the damage that it takes to defeat them. So the way to unlock the deer antlers is to get an S+ rank in standard mode. Pretty good accessory to use, especially if you're going for knife challenges of sorts. Alright, just wanted to briefly mention that. So something I decided to add, as per suggestion by some of my mutuals who follow me, I'm gonna demonstrate the durability of all the knives by way of parrying against a chainsaw attack. This attack takes the most out of your knife if you block against it. So it's a good way to really show the durability, especially with the later knives. Of course, when it comes to these first knives, like the kitchen knife, you're gonna see it. They're not gonna last very long. So check this out.
But I'm a one lady type of guy. Sorry, you're not my type.
Breaks it right off. Demonstrate it one more time, because I have 3 of these to spare. There you go. All right, so that is pairing with the kitchen knife, and that concludes the kitchen knife. Now for the next knife, the boot knife. I should mention that the kitchen knives, while they are collectible throughout most of the game, they're only specifically collectible during the village sections of the game and the short section of the castle where Ganados are abound, such as the mines. So basically anywhere where there's regular villager Ganados, you can find some kitchen knives. Now as for the boot knife, this is exclusive to the castle and beyond. You'll get these abundant. All right, so let's check out the boot knife in the menu, or examine it. So the boot knife is described as a knife used for hunting. This basic mass-produced item was made with affordability in mind, not durability. Interesting. And if we compare the statistics of this knife and the last knife, the kitchen knife, you can see they both had the same power, but the boot knife has twice as much durability, but the same attack speed. All right, so let's test out the boot knife. Here's Leon holding it. I'm gonna turn around so the light's actually facing his arm. There we go. Oh yeah. All right, here we go. Alright, he uses all the knives basically the same. The only difference there would be is if there was a difference in attack speed. So, let's go ahead and test out the boot knife on a standard Ganado. Okay, so right off the bat, there's some inconsistencies, well, sort of, with this weapon review. This took me 9 slashes, and that's including, I'm pretty sure one of those was a face or a head slash, because I saw the blood on her head. So what does that mean? I mean, the boot knife has the same firepower as the kitchen knife, so if anything, it should have taken the same amount of slashes as the kitchen knife. The only logical explanation I can come up with is that range that I gave earlier. It probably could take as little as 6, and as much as 9 when playing in standard mode, at least, when it comes to these knives. And I just got the higher end of the spectrum. So it took 9 slashes with the boot knife, but let's try stabs. Could get a totally different result. Oh, gotta finish her off. All right. So that's an example of one of the special actions you could do with the knife right there. But that doesn't count towards the overall amount of stabs it took, because that's a dying phase, that if you don't act quick enough, then they can basically have a second form, like a plaga form. But anyway, that took 7 stabs. So that took as many stabs as the kitchen knife took with slashes. Now, of course, when I think about it, there's more variables that could be coming into play here. It's possible that some of those slashes that I did in the previous test hit her arm instead of her body, and that very well could deal way less damage than a torso or headshot. So that could also come into play. That's why it's best to just have a range of how many slashes it's gonna take. You have your statistic of the knife itself, and there's also, of course, enemy health points, but I don't care to do the research. That's something you could do on your end, and you could do the math. But yep, that is testing the boot knife out for you. Let me mention though, again, like I said in the introduction, you can create bolts through knives and combining them with the materials. Either knife works, because these are the collectible knives through the game, and they both, as you can see, create the same amount of bolts. So just mentioning that. All right, now let's test out the durability of the boot knife. Alright, so just like the kitchen knife, the boot knife will break upon one parry of the chainsaw attack. Alrighty, that's gonna conclude the boot knife. Now for the next knife, the combat knife. Alright, here's the combat knife in-game, a weapon suited for close encounters. It has been Leon's go-to since receiving it during his time at the RPD. Oh, so that's indicative of the one Marvin gave him in Resident Evil 2. It is the same exact knife when you look at it. This was also featured in Resident Evil 3, though, so I wonder if there's any connection there. Probably not. It's probably a very common combat knife in the Resident Evil verse. So, take a look at its statistics. This one has a power of 0.6, just slightly more powerful than the boot knife, but its durability is at 1. So this is much more durable than the previous 2 knives we've seen so far, and it does have a slightly higher attack speed, probably because it's Leon's personal knife, so he's gotten used to using it. All right, so let's check it out. Here's him holding it, nice and shiny, nice, and there's him holstering it. All right, here we go. Yep, you can definitely see the speed difference. All right, let's test this one out on a Ganado. Alrighty, so that took 9 slashes to defeat a Ganado. A couple of those probably were leg shots, so that probably contributed to that test a little bit. So I say this a lot, especially in more modern reviews to where variables are all over the place. But yeah, these tests may not be very consistent. It's more so just showing it in action and getting a very basic comparison between all of the knives. So yeah, don't take any of these tests like very seriously. There's a lot of variables and statistics involved. But yeah, that test for me took 9 slashes. Let's try stabs, see if it makes a difference. Alright, so that took 7 stabs to defeat a standard Ganado in standard mode with the unupgraded combat knife. Now, one of those hits was probably a face shot because the stun animation occurred and I had the option to melee, but regardless, it's still within the range that I proposed of the knives so far. So yeah, that was an adequate test, and both the boot knife and the combat knife fared better when doing the stabbing motion, while the kitchen knife, for whatever reason, took 1 more stab than it did for slashes. And so far, the kitchen knife, weirdly enough, has had the best luck when it comes to just regular slashing. So, wonder what's going on there, if there's anything weird happening. But anyway, that's it for the unupgraded combat knife. Now I have to go over it fully upgraded. Alright, so what separates the combat knife from the previous two knives we've gone over so far is the fact that it is Leon's personal knife. So, I didn't even mention yet that you have this knife from the very start of the game. So, here's the other special things about it. And I mentioned this in the beginning of the review, but for the first time ever, you can tune up knives. So here you go. I could actually upgrade this knife right here. On top of that, I could of course sell the knife as well. This goes for the other two knives as well. You could sell those if you want, but their resale value is way lower than of course the combat knife. So I sell the combat knife right now for 5,000 pesetas. Once I do that, if I go into the buy menu, it becomes a part of this sub-menu called repurchase. As you can see, I have a ton of weapons in here because I already purchased all the weapons of the game earlier. So, if we go down, keep going down, there's the combat knife. So, after selling it, you could repurchase it for a price. The reason why I'm showing you guys this is because, for the first time ever, I'm also going to tell you guys how much all of the weapons cost to buy and to fully upgrade, so I can give you a total figure and how much money you should plan on spending if you want to go all out with your weapons. Now, of course, these prices represent standard mode prices. It could be more expensive for higher difficulties, or less expensive for lower difficulties. So just keep this in mind, this is for standard difficulty only, alright? So, to repurchase the combat knife, it's 10,000 pesetas.
All yours, stranger.
That's just one of his generic voice lines for purchasing a generic type weapon. Alright, so I rebought it for 10,000 pesetas, and now I'm gonna fully upgrade its stats, starting with its power.
Could be dazzled, are you? Our craftsmanship demands no less. Try that on for size. This kind of work is about... That's about all I can do for this weapon. Although... No, never mind.
Now, another feature when it comes to these non-disposable knives, you also have a repair function. So when your durability is dwindled or completely gone, the merchant could repair your knife for a certain amount. I'm not going to include this amount in the total pricing of the knife because this is a game statistic that's random and it's your usage of the knife that contributes to how much you're going to spend on it throughout the game. So I'm not going to include this statistic, but once you increase the power and durability to the max, then the exclusive would normally become available. It was available from the get-go here only because I have an exclusive ticket, which is an in-game feature that allows you to purchase the exclusive of any weapon of your choosing from the get-go. So, it's a pretty nice thing to have. It costs a lot of spinels, which in this game are a whole nother currency, which I'll emphasize more in a little bit, because there are some weapon-related materials that require spinels to purchase. So, I'm gonna spend 60,000 on this exclusive right now, and as you can see, as I was upgrading the knife on the right, you can see the triangle pyramid grid. I really love this thing because you can see the statistics and like just how much they're being upgraded. So if I do this,
it doesn't get any better than that. It's a veritable work of art.
So that exclusive upgrade specifically increased the attack speed by 1.5 times. So as you can see now, the attack speed still says 1.2, but it's multiplied by 1.5. So it's not giving me an exact number. I would have to do the math to really give you the amount. If it's 1.5 times, half of 1.2 is 0.6. So 1.2 plus 0.6 comes out to 1.8. That is the total attack speed for the combat knife once you exclusively upgrade it. That is insane. So now, let's test the knife out with full upgrades. Wow, he is much faster, as you can clearly see. Oh yeah, I should have demonstrated like hitting objects with these, because you can, sort of. Wow, look at that. He's a ninja with the knife now. Well, can't wait to test this thing on a ganado. They are done for. Woo! Oh, all right. Only took 5 slashes that time to defeat the ganado. And I ended up slicing her leg off right at the very end there. Yeah, this game can get pretty gory with it. Well, now let's try stabs. Alright, so it took 5 stabs as well as slashes, so no real difference between slashing and stabbing with this knife, at least when fully upgraded, when it came to those tests. Alright, but yeah, this is a very lethal weapon once you fully upgrade it, and it will last you a long time because the durability is pretty high up. Alright, now to test the durability of the combat knife, first with no upgrades.
The guy. Sorry, you're not my type.
Alright, so that took a very large chunk of it, but it still survived. So it'll handle at least 2 attacks of the chainsaw. Alright, now let's switch to full upgrades and see how many of those it takes to break the knife.
Sorry, you're not my type.
Alright, it only takes about 1/3 of it this time. Alright, so with full upgrades, the combat knife can take up to 3 attacks of the chainsaw. So, nice boost in durability there. Alright, well that is gonna conclude the combat knife.
Foolish little lamb. Temperance, child.
Ashley.
Try using knives next time. Better for close encounters.
Not a bad move. Very smooth. Oh, Leon. You know I don't work and tell.
Not good.
Now for the next knife, the fighting knife. Now here it is in game. A one-of-a-kind knife custom-made for fighting. It is both razor sharp and highly durable. Alright. Now, of course, this is Krauser's personal knife. And you can only get it with Leon once you defeat Krauser in the main section of the game where you battle Krauser. Once you have it, though, and you keep doing New Game Pluses, it'll be available for use forever. Alright, so let's go ahead and test this out. Oh, I like the sound it makes while it's slashing. Cool. Let's see Leon holster it. There you go. Alright. Let's test this thing out on a Ganado. First, with no upgrades, because just like the combat knife, it too can be upgraded. Whoa. Wow. That only took 2 slashes. That third one, she was already dying. Interesting. Wonder how that happened. Unless I accidentally hit her in the face with one of those based on how her face looks right now. But yeah, wow. This truly is a powerhouse, even with no upgrades. Based on that test, let's see if the same happens with stabbing. I'm gonna try something different for this test to make it a little easier. I'm gonna flash her first. and then get her from behind. Alright, so it took me 4 stabs to defeat the Ganado with the fighting knife. No upgrades whatsoever. So now let's go and check out the fighting knife with full upgrades. Alright, if I sell the fighting knife as is, gives me back 10,000 pesetas.
Well struck.
So, go to the repurchase menu. You could rebuy the fighting knife for 20,000 pesetas.
You're a man of good taste.
And now let's fully upgrade it.
There you are. As you wished. See how that feels, mate. A fellow like yourself should notice the difference right away. There you are, as you wished. This kind of work is about finesse, stranger. Little bit goes a long way. You'll see. Dazzled, are you? Sad to say that's the end of the road for that weapon. Packs up. It doesn't get any better than that. It's a veritable work of art, mate.
Alright, so now let's test it out. So you're not gonna see an immediate difference with just testing out the knife because the attack speed wasn't touched whatsoever. Only the durability and the power was touched. And I failed to mention, specifically the exclusive upgrade for the fighting knife is double the power. So from 1.8 to 3.6. Unbelievable. So let's test this thing out on a Ganado. Whoa! Okay, so just like when it had no upgrades, it only took 2 slashes and that second one just decimated one of her limbs. Crazy. I wasn't really even aiming that low, but it somehow hit that. It's not a huge representation of the firepower increase, other than that grotesque display right there. But let's go ahead and try some stabs. That we could see a good difference, because in the original test with no upgrades, it took 4 slashes. I'm expecting it to take way less. Alright, it only took 3 stabs to defeat the Ganado with full upgrades on the fighting knife. So yeah, obviously the power is higher, 2 times its max upgrade to be exact. So yeah, I would expect it to take at least 1 less slash. Now if you want to be optimal, you really should always go for the head. Oh! Aw, you cheese. Ooh! So yeah, just wanted to demonstrate to you all that even though I'm doing it the hard way and always going for the torso, if you go for the face, you could diminish the shots by a lot. As little as 1 with the fighting knife fully upgraded, as you saw there. Ew, the freaking neck. Alright, so when it comes to the fighting knife, I gotta show something extra with it. You can use it, of course, with Krauser in the Mercenaries mode, considering it's his personal knife. However, he uses it way differently than Leon, so check it out. Alright, that is plenty of a demonstration for Krauser using his fighting knife. Alright, now let's test the durability of the fighting knife, first with no upgrades.
Sorry.
It took a little more than half of it. But it broke within 2 attacks of the chainsaw. Now let's get it fully upgraded and test its durability then.
Sorry.
Alright, so with full upgrades, it'll take a total of 3 chainsaw attacks to break it. So yeah, not as large of a durability increase as the combat knife, but nonetheless, it's good to have more durability. Alright, that's gonna conclude the fighting knife.
Louis! And killing a few rats along the way. Easy work. You catch on quick. Didn't I teach you? 9. We are just getting started, rookie. You haven't changed a damn bit.
That you did, Major.
Now for the next and final knife, the Primal Knife. I'm pretty sure this is modeled after Leon's original knife in the OG RE4. Sure looks to be that way. And here it is in game, a knife forged with infinite possibilities. Now that's an indicator of something that I'll show you in a little bit. Now the Primal Knife is an unlockable weapon by way of destroying all the clockwork Castellans. Once you do that, then this knife becomes available in the extra content shop. And it doesn't show here, but it'll cost you 1000 CP. Once you have it, then it becomes available in the storage menu at any typewriter after you purchase it. And take a look at its statistics, a higher starting power than any of the disposable knives and Leon's regular knife. But check out the durability compared to the combat, or the fighting for that matter. It has the highest durability of all the knives. That's really its main feature, more or less. It has a slightly higher attack speed than normal knives, but not as much as Leon's combat knife. Alright, let's give it a test. Alright, perfect. Now let's go ahead and test it out on a Ganado. Alright, so that took me 6 slashes to defeat a Ganado in standard mode. No upgrades. Now let's try the stab motion. Alright, so that took a total of 5 stabs, 4 of them right to her tuchus. So a very decent knife, like overall. And of course, yeah, again, its significant factor is its durability, so this will last you a while. So that's it for the Primal Knife with no upgrades. Now let's check out how much it costs total and test it out with full upgrades. So while the Primal Knife can be bought from the store for 1000 CP and then it becomes a part of your storage automatically, if you sell it and you want to repurchase it, it'll cost you 50,000 pesetas. So it's a spendy knife, unfortunately. So if we go to upgrade the Primal Knife.
See how that feels, mate. A fellow like yourself should notice the difference right away. We're starting to get an idea of your tastes, friend. This kind of work is about finesse, stranger. little bit goes a long way. You'll see. Try that on for size. See how that feels, mate. You've exhausted our normal range of services for this weapon. If you're interested in something more, well, you catch my drift. That is a top-notch comeback anytime.
Alright, so with full upgrades, here are the statistics, and yes, the exclusive upgrade made it indestructible. So its durability really is infinite, not just 2.4. And of course, its attack speed isn't affected, so you're not going to see any difference right here just testing it out like this. So, let's go ahead and test its power upgrade against the Ganado. Ooh, nice. No, you don't. So, it only took 4 slashes to defeat the Ganado, plus a stab with the Plaga before it spawned, which doesn't count toward that as a reminder, in standard mode, with full upgrades. Now let's try the stabbing motion. Alright, so it took only 4 stabs as well as slashes to defeat that Ganado in standard mode with the Primal Knife fully upgraded. So this is a very decent knife, but of course, like I said already, the more important factor is the durability, which of course, time to test out the durability of the Primal Knife, first with no upgrades. Should be pretty neat considering this is a durable knife out the gate. Ooh, just about halfway. Oh wow, even after 2 attacks, it still survives. So it's gonna take a total of 3 attacks to defeat this knife. Alrighty. Now, of course, with full upgrades, its durability is infinite. So I'm just gonna demonstrate the ridiculousness of that.
Sorry, you're not my type.
Alright, I think you get the point. It is indestructible, as it says. You can parry against anything, attack against anything, and it will never break. So this is the ideal knife to have. Of course, you gotta unlock it first, and then get it out of your storage, and spend the money to fully upgrade it. But once you have it, it is a beast of a knife. And the optimal knife, probably, to do the knife challenge, where you beat the whole game with the knife. Alright, that is going to conclude the Primal Knife, and now I'm going to show you guys everything you can do with the knife. I'm going to be going back to Leon's personal combat knife, and I'm going to be using it with full upgrades. Pay a little bit of attention to the durability that each thing takes from it. But it's just gonna be a slideshow, not gonna be any commentary associated with it, really. And yeah, once I'm done with that, that's gonna be the conclusion of all of the knives. So enjoy the slideshow and knife action.
Sorry, you're not my type. That had to have done something. Fucking monsters. Operation Javier?
They killed us all. Now what?
Krauser!
Haven't moved anything these last 2 years.
Is not the sinner who is in most need of salvation? Toil for the fullest time, and he shall bless you once more.